An unperceivable amount of time passed. Zheng woke up on the platform in God's dimension. Xian, Kappa, and Wangxia were still lying on the stretchers. The three newbies were nowhere to be seen. Zheng sighed. He didn't have the extra attention for the newbies once he learned of the limited time these three people had. Instead of letting the newbies complete the bonus mission and risk losing Xian and the others due to the time constraint, he chose his comrades. He wouldn't let his mercy burden the team. God, repair everyone. Deduct points from themselves. Zheng yelled. Several beams immediately surrounded the four people and lifted them up in the air. The beam on Zheng quickly dissipated. That was when he realized the young dragon was still in his arms. He hesitated before entering the warehouse. What if the dragon couldn't be brought back? Then the government would get a hold of it. There was no way to retrieve it from the government in a reasonable amount of time even if they were to return to the Jurassic Park's world. However, he didn't have any means of hiding the dragon at the time. He was under surveillance the whole time. Handing it to the blonde man was of no help either. So he carried the dragon along as a test of his luck. It seemed like they won this bet. While Xian, Kappa, and Wangxia were still repairing, the door to his room opened. Lori ran out with a teary laughter and jumped onto him. Zheng didn't even get to throw the dragon off before she was in his arms. Lori bit his shoulder but then a series of barking caught her attention. She looked at Zheng in surprise. The young dragon squeezed up from them and barked loudly like a puppy as tear flowed down its eyes. Lori instantly grabbed it into her arms. Poor little puppy. Just a little ugly. Well, you will be called ugly from this day on. The dragon didn't like Lori's cuddle. When she tried to pat its head, it bit her hand. Though its teeth weren't even developed at this point and just made Lori giggle. Zheng felt peaceful looking at the scene. A kind of peace that calmed him down from the tension that built up during the movies. He walked over to Lori and kissed her. At the same time, the swelling on the other three people were subsiding and the fester gone. They landed on the floor in perfect condition. Kappa swung his arms around. His strength looked much higher. So God repaired their body but didn't take away the enhanced stats from the dragon's blood. Then their profit was much higher. 100 points in 4 stats equal to 4,000 points. Zheng let go of Lori. He turned to the three people with a smile. How are you feeling? Kappa laughed. Great. Can't believe how good this repair is. My body was swollen and itchy but the repair brought it back to normal. Haha. Wangxia also laughed. Yeah. I could smell the rotten liquid from my body when my body even moved a bit on the stretcher. It was rotten like a long dead corpse. I'd rather die than experience that horrifying sensation again. Zheng patted them on the shoulder. He saw Xian was already under God with his eyes closed so he yelled. Xian, take a rest today. We will discuss things tomorrow. Xian replied in his usual tone. You go ahead. I discovered something interesting. Also, the 2 books are in Wangxia's hands. It's better to put them back into the NA ring. We can't afford to damage these 2 books. Wangxia ripped an opening on his jacket and pulled out the books. We tried to protect these books as much as possible in case we have to revive you. Haha. You will have to tell us about how you lived under that condition. Kappa punched Zheng and also laughed. Right. How dare you try to be a hero? We were in terrible moods for a few days. You will have to tell us tomorrow. Then he walked next to Xian and closed his eyes. Zheng and Wangxia were confused until a beam shone down on Kappa, then a blonde woman appeared in his arms. She wasn't tall but her proportions were perfect with legs that was at least 60% of her height. Zheng felt a sense of familiarity when he looked at the woman, then recognized her as a famous movie star in the real world. She was also the daughter of a billionaire, the dream of countless men. Kappa kissed her then shouted. Anyone that knocks on my door tomorrow can't get an erection for half a year. Haha. He carried her running to his room. The door was shut with a loud bang. Zheng and Wangxia smiled bitterly at each other. Zheng couldn't make any more women since he already had Lori. Xian didn't have such desires to create a woman. So he was curious at Wangxia. Why don't you create a partner? Or do you have a special interest? Wangxia smiled. No, I also want to relax like this after the tension, but I will feel sorry for her. She's still alive. Just forget it. When I become powerful enough to go back, I won't be ashamed of myself looking at her. Based on our current progressions, it shouldn't take too long to return. Zheng was touched. Wangxia was a real man. A man wasn't just someone that succumbed to his sexual desires but actually be able to restrain himself and not cross the bottom line for his lover. Zheng smiled. Don't worry. We will return one day. Maybe it is just 1 or 2 years in the real world. You won't make her wait too long. Haha. Never thought you were devoted to love. Wangxia chuckled and walked to his room. His steps were determined with no trace of the suffering that he had just gone through. Zheng hugged Lori then headed for his room. Xian's voice came from behind. Thanks for your hard work. Zheng waved his hand without turning around. Xian was still standing under God. The night passed peacefully, aside from Lori taking a few hours to build a cabin for the dragon before Zheng carried her inside. The two slept until their internal clock kicked in. By the time they came out to the platform, all others aside from Kappa were already there. Zheng thought Xian might have stood there for the night since he was as the same position as before. Lori was considerate and went back to the room to prepare breakfast and food for the dragon. Wangxia gave Zheng a smile then went back to the book he was reading. The cover and thickness of the book looked like a published web novel from the real world. Xian opened his eyes to take a glance at Zheng and Wang Xia, then said, "Wait until Kappa comes. I said I discovered something interesting yesterday. We will test it in a bit." Zheng and Wang Xia then started chatting casually until Lori came out with cakes, milk, and apples. Xian only took a bright red apple while the other two were more interested in the cakes and milk. Almost another hour later, Kappa came out laughing. The blonde woman chased out and kicked him in the butt before quickly returning to the room. They saw she was in a lingerie. Kappa massaged his butt and ran toward everyone. He sat down on the floor, then grabbed a piece of cake and started eating. Haha. Aryan women are so energetic. I woke her up in the morning and she could still do this. His gestures were rated 18. Lori blushed and ran back to the room. Zheng gave him a punch and laughed. Aren't you afraid of breaking her with that body of yours? You should know how late it is already. Kappa seemed proud of himself instead. Xian turned around and said to them, "The last bonus mission gave each of us 1,000 points. Not as much as I expected, but it was basically 0 difficulty. So it's still reasonable. I have 8,000 points, a rank B reward. 12,000 from all the missions and deducted 4,000 from the first bonus mission. Kappa and Wang Xia should have about the same." Kappa and Wang Xia both stood under God and checked their rewards. After a while, Wang Xia nodded. Kappa said, "I have a little over 9,000. Is it from killing the dinosaurs?" Zheng also closed his eyes. He almost couldn't speak from the shock he received. "I have over 14,000 points. Shit. We are rich now. Also a rank A reward, 2 rank C rewards, and a rank D reward. Why do I have so many points? I only got 1,000 points more than you from the second bonus mission." Xian adjusted his glasses. This is the advantage of a large number of people. The army of Anubis is more effective than us at killing weaker monsters in huge battles like this. 14,000 points is enough to revive at least one person. Zheng nodded. "I will reserve 8,000 points and a rank B reward when exchanging enhancements and items. Which means I have 5,000 points and 2 rank B rewards I can use." Xian shook his head. "No, I think we should enter the mummy to revive members first before exchanging anything so they can be included in any discussions for the team. And I can plan properly." Zheng was confused. "Isn't it enough for me to enter alone? You haven't activated the mummy's world yet, which is a rank D reward. That seems wasteful. Furthermore, you only have 8,000 points. How many will you have left after going in to revive them?" Xian shook his head again. "This isn't an issue. We should activate this world also. If you happen to die, we won't have to worry about finding a rank D reward. Aside from this reason, I think reviving in both God's Dimension and the mummy allows for everyone to contribute. Otherwise, 8,000 points and a rank B reward from one person is too harsh. If this is true, we can revive 2 people this round. The distribution will go like this. Each of us will contribute 4,000 points and 2 rank C rewards. You will contribute 6,000 points and 2 rank C rewards instead. Which leave us at 2 rank D rewards and over 4,000 points, while you have a rank A and rank D reward and 8,000 points. That's enough for you to get a tier HE." Zheng didn't know what to say. In contrast, Kappa and Wang Xia both nodded in agreement about entering the mummy together and contribute for the revival so Zheng could become even stronger. Zheng wanted to reject the suggestion, but he couldn't utter a word. He quietly patted the other 3 people on the shoulders, then turned to Xian, who still had more to say. "As to the revival order, if we can revive 2 people, then I will choose Lan and Zero. Even though Hung's sniping ability sounded strong from your description, but his mental state may cause accidents in our plans. So I hope to choose Zero as the first person and Lan must come after him. We will have a 70% chance of protecting her this way. The Psyche Scan and Soul Link abilities are too useful. If she was in the last movie, we wouldn't have to run away several times." After saying this, Xian took out a few necklaces from his pocket. They were made of a white metal. Each necklace was embedded with a jade the size of a thumb and had a faint glow. The jades were vibrant and translucent. "These are made from the dragon's heart. I split it into 20 pieces and made 20 of them. The metal used is the Luna titanium alloy that has self-healing property. The necklaces took 100 points total and I spent another 150 points to charge one of them. The interesting thing is," he showed the necklace he was wearing, the pointed the gauze pistol at his head. He pulled the trigger in front of their shocking expressions. A series of gunshots followed. Zheng was the first to sprint up and grabbed Xian's arm, but it was much faster for Xian to pull the trigger. With a series of gunshots, the needle-like bullets hit the surface of his temple. At the same time, a translucent barrier surfaced and blocked the bullets. Zheng knocked Xian's hand away, then slammed him to the floor. The pistol also fell to the floor. He shouted, "F***CK. I know you don't have a desire to live, so I hope you can stay alive until you reach the 3rd stage. And what did you do? There was no need to use your head for experiment. Do you want us to see our comrade killing himself?" Zheng punched Xian on the chin, sending him back 10 meters and breaking his chin. Then Zheng panted heavily and shouted, "God, give him a repair. Deduct the points from me." Kappa and Wang Xia immediately separated the 2 of them. Kappa's tone also sounded cold. "Xian, you know the mutual agreements between mercenaries. One does not kill himself under any other reason than captured, because that will only burden your comrades. The injury wasn't serious. The beam only lasted for a brief moment and his chin was repaired. Xian touched his chin and said, "Was that because you are concerned about me? That isn't necessary. I already experimented this on my hand last night, then moved toward each part of the body. As long as you are wearing the necklace, all bullets and energy attacks will be blocked off when they reach 1 to 2 centimeters near you. The barrier energy can last very long. 150 points of recharge is equivalent to the effect of a CC defensive item. It takes the gauze pistol 20 minutes of continuous shooting to deplete the energy." Zheng shouted back at him. F***ck. Even then you still didn't have to point it at your head. Where is your dream? Your desire to live? To become a real person? Can you still reach them if you die? F***ing do it again and I will break your limbs. Xian adjusted his eyes and turned his head away. It's pointless hitting me since I can't feel pain. I apologize for my rash behavior this time. Zheng, Kampa, and Wang Xia looked at each other in shocking surprise. They never imagined that Xian would apologize. At the same time, Xian threw the necklaces to them and continued. The dragon's heart is the most valuable reward from the Jurassic Park world, more so than points and rank rewards. That is if the following experiment succeeds. Zheng, channel your chi or blood energy into the dragon's heart. Zheng immediately channeled his chi. He had slightly more chi than blood energy at this point since it was easier to train. All he had to do was circulate the chi in his body, while blood energy needed to be depleted and recovered to gain an increase. The dragon's heart glowed in a soft white as the corrosive chi entered it. The glow soon increased to the intensity equivalent to Xian's dragon's heart and no more chi could enter it anymore. Xian asked at once. How much chi or blood energy did you use? Zheng felt his energy and said. About 15% of my chi. I haven't tried blood energy yet. The dragon's heart didn't absorb much. Xian let out a sigh of relief, then took out his other pistol and pointed at Zheng's hand. I will fire when you are ready. Zheng said. Okay, go ahead. Xian pulled the trigger upon hearing those words. Numerous bullets shot toward Zheng's hand but the barrier blocked them just before reaching his finger. Xian fired for several seconds. The barrier persisted without any change and only disappeared after the shooting stopped. The reason the dragon couldn't be harmed by firearms and sensed the gravity mine was due to this dragon's heart. I suspect it could also recharge the shard's energy. But due to the amount of energy that can be stored, if an attack is powerful enough, it will break through the barrier. Xian muttered. Zheng stared at the necklace for a while before he said in excitement. This is great that the necklace is rechargeable and I can charge it. Your close combat abilities and defenses are too weak. With this necklace, you can block all the attacks and use sci-fi weapons from afar while I recharge the energy continuously. Haha. Our team basically won't get killed anymore aside from huge attacks or movies that are too difficult. Kampa and Wang Xia were also excited. The necklaces that can protect against most things were an amulet, much more important than any weapons. Xian smiled and nodded. I was worried about it taking too much of your energy to recharge. If it used half of your energy, its value will drop below half of what it is. Didn't expect it to use so little. From this point on, as long as we plan accordingly in the movies, there shouldn't be many casualties. Zheng laughed out, then recharged Kampa and Wang Xia's necklaces. He also tested blood energy on them, which had different properties from chi. But once the blood energy entered the dragon's heart, it became the shard's energy. In comparison to chi, he expended slightly less than 15% of blood energy, which meant that it was more condensed than chi. After all was done, they wore their necklaces. The design wasn't ugly to say the least. There were no decorations, just a silver white chain and the soft white shard, which gave them a plain look. Xian waited for them to calm down before saying to Zheng. The discussion on points and rewards from the last movie is over. Now let's talk about how you survived. Say it in details and it did your strength grew. Zheng nodded. Xian continued. No wonder you broke my chin in one hit. You didn't have this kind of strength before. Zheng smiled bitterly. He remembered when he punched Xian in the face after Alien. His strength back then was obviously weaker and didn't break Xian's chin. He said. You are still bearing the grudge. It has been so long. Xian adjusted his glasses calmly. Why bear any grudges? Talk about what happened first. Zheng took a deep breath then sat down on the floor. He narrated what happened after he woke up and how he survived based on what the scientists said and his guesses. The bomb exploded when I was still in destruction mode. My body's toughness was much higher during this mode, so I didn't get crushed. The blast wave pushed me into the dragon's head. Then Zheng narrated his experience from how his lower body was fused with the dragon's flesh and survived the dragon cell's attack and gained its properties, to when he woke up, defeated the Marines and got in contact with them, and finally when he went to Isla Nublar with the general and Marines. It was over half an hour later when he finished. Kampa and Wang Xia sighed. Everyone thought he was dead at the time because even the dragon was blown to pieces. It was a miracle that Zheng survived. This shouldn't be a miracle. Zheng also sighed, then muttered. You told me that a bomb exerts its full power inside the target. The inside of the dragon is only flesh. In contrast, it was outside me when it exploded. If I am a piece of metal, it will blow me away instead of blasting me to pieces. Xian asked. You fused with the dragon cell? Or I should say a large part of you consists of the dragon's flesh. The three of us retained the stats from the dragon's blood after the repair. What did you get? Zheng thought for a bit. My physical stats almost doubled, chi and blood energy more than doubled. Oh, and my recovery rate also increased by a lot. Let me show you. He put his finger in his mouth and bit it. The finger was bleeding immediately with a bite mark. The other three people look over at the finger and saw the wound slowly closing up. The recovery rate isn't as high as the dragon, but in just a minute, scabs had formed on the wound and most of it healed. Basically, my explosion technique can last 30 to 40 seconds. Destruction almost 10 seconds. I think I can fight the dragon head on if I get another chance. I won't put the team under the same desperate situation again. He clenched his fist and said. This Jurassic Park movie was completed almost perfectly. Almost, because the three newbies were killed by God. Xian suggested to put Gondo in the revival list, but not for some time. Gondo was still a newbie with no combat abilities until they could get him a robot. The team repaired their weapons and exchanged some basic consumables like antidotes, hemostasis spray, bandage, solidified water, compressed food, and etc. They decided to rest for another day before entering the mummy to revive Zero and Lan. It was up to fate on whether they could revive both people. By the time everything was said and done, it was already 5 p.m. Campus woman came out several times. She didn't whine or anything and brought them coffee. Lori also brought everyone tea and fruits. After a while, the two women started chatting. The blonde woman was quite good at conversations. Lori started calling her sister before long. Campa said to them. Haha. She's amazing, right? I don't know what personality the movie star has, but this is the woman of my dream. I also made her only loyal to me. The woman was cooking at the time. She blushed and threw a pan at Campa. Fortunately, there was nothing in the pan, but it still knocked him to the floor. She came over, picked up the pan and slammed him several times before returning to the kitchen. They spent the afternoon doing preparations for the movie. It was only 10 days with nothing threatening, but being over-prepared was never a bad idea. All the weapons were checked, the sky stick was repaired and recharged, and all consumables exchanged. When they were finally done with them, they noticed they were starving and decided to eat in Zheng's room with the two women being chefs. The women happily prepared their food while the four of them sat there staring at each other. Only Campa said some adult jokes once in a while. Xian and Wang Xia were just silent. Zheng had to pick up the conversation and said. What do you want to do in the real world after saving 50,000 points? Campa laughed. Of course, go back with countless gold. Actually, diamond is better. A few hundred soccer ball-sized diamonds. I will go buy an island, build a city, and a castle. I will enjoy the rest of my life as the king of the island. Zheng smiled. So you're one that wants to be a king. Not a bad dream to enjoy the rest of your life. What about you, Wang Xia? He paused for a moment before replying. Exchange information to bring back. I also saw a tier BB pill used for cultivation. It can quickly help a person establish the foundation stage for cultivation. A normal person that takes it can live up to 300 years and become immune to most diseases. I want to bring my mother one of these pills. She raised me up by herself after my father died. I want to give her a few more years of happiness. Xian said we have a longer lifespan than normal people already. When a person's physical stats, especially cell vitality and immunization increase, the person's lifespan increases. Xian nodded. Correct. We can at least live up to 150 years old. Zheng's lifespan is more difficult to estimate but should be above 300. Zheng laughed. It will be amazing if we can leave this world. What's the point of staying here longer? What about you, Xian? The question seemingly stumped him. He tilted his head for a while before answering. I haven't thought of anything yet. I will return to this question after reaching the 4th stage. Zheng patted his shoulder. After I go back, if I can go back alive, I want to live the rest of my life peacefully. I can also be a hero when I get bored enough. Let us leave this world alive and face the real world together. The 4 people gathered on the platform early the next day. They held their hands and connected to God. After the other 3 people unlocked the mummy world, they exchanged 10 days of time for 500 points each person. The next moment, they were outside the inn. This was the first time Campa and Wang Xia entered this world. The world was at a time period after World War I and before World War II. The two looked around with curiosity while Zheng brought out the sky stick and the ropes. By the time they finished looking around, Zheng was already on the sky stick. Campa and Wang Xia's faces reddened a bit. Their reaction was like a farmer entering the city for the first time. They wouldn't have this reaction if this was a normal movie, but they let their guards down since they knew there were no threats. The two stepped onto the ropes after Xian. Zheng laughed out loud then took off. The sky stick reached Hamunaptra quickly even when carrying 3 extra people. A military camp was established at their destination. The bugle sounded as the sky stick came into view. Zheng and the others were curious at the scene. Campa and Wang Xia readied their weapons to guard against any unforeseen events. A group of men in black clothes ran out. Zheng noticed Ardith among these men and immediately stopped Campa and Wang Xia. He landed the sky stick to the ground. Ardith ran over to them with a few hundred of his men. He laughed and gave Zheng a hug. Haha. Long time no see. What do you think of this base? The elders think this is a good place to train troops and spent a large sum to build this base. We also dug through the underground reservoirs. Come, take a rest inside. He dragged Zheng toward the base. Campa and Wang Xia looked at each other then at the friendly smiles of the men in black clothes. They followed up with a laughter. This kind of military atmosphere had a certain charm to them. On the other hand, Xian was as emotionless as ever. He observed the surrounding while walking to the base. This base was rather standard. The airplane runway was still in construction. The buildings were built using rocks excavated from Hamunaptra. Otherwise, rocks were difficult to come by in a desert. It was nearing nightfall. Ardith told them scarabs could be seen occasionally in the night, so they should enter the altar the next day. Zhen nodded in agreement. It was still the first of 10 days. The current situation in the world isn't optimistic. The Western nations are opposing each other. The damage done from World War I had been repaired to some degree. Germany, who lost in the war, began another round of development. Their leader is a very capable man called Hitler. Tension has been brewing among the Western nations. Egypt might also get mixed up in the affair. Our tribe has developed immensely since obtaining the gold. We sent thousands of the young generation to study in the US and built 3 hidden bases like this one. Ho ho. The elder even suggested we change the tribe's name to Al-Qaeda. Zhen was drinking a cactus fruit wine when he heard the name and instantly spilled the wine out. He turned to Ardith with a weird expression and said, "You hadn't really changed the name to this, right?" Ardith laughed. "The name change is just a suggestion from some elders. It's not going to get passed." The other elders wanted Gamma al-Islamiyah. Shit. All terrorist groups. Zheng followed up immediately. "What's the result? Did you change to this name?" Ardith shook his head. The argument came to an end with the name Egyptian Resuscitation Council. They said that many countries are using something council or party as names nowadays. So we should also get a name like this. How do you feel about the name? Zheng sipped the wine. With a name like this, are you planning to conquer and restore Egypt? Ardith nodded. We didn't have the power to do so before. The gold made our living much better and can arm our men with weapons. There aren't many people in the base now because the troops just finished training and left. The elders hired foreign engineers to build a weapon production factory near an oasis. Perhaps we can help Egypt gain independence from the control of Western nations during this state of tension. Zheng slapped his shoulder and said, "I will support you. Haha. I brought you something nice this time." He walked to an empty area and started pouring the dimensional bag. Gold bars rolled out onto the ground. "I brought you guys 20 cubic meters of gold this time. Hope these can help you obtain your victories. And here's another gift." Xian took out a document from his pocket and placed it on the table. Improved AK. The technology at this time can produce it without issues. Uses regular 5.56 ammos. All related data is contained within the document. The gun is 30 years ahead in technology. Ardith scanned the document, then immediately put it in his pocket with surprise and excitement. He didn't know how to reply at this point. This gun design was worth more than the gold. If they can produce the gun at will, their troops' combat strength will grow immensely, and in some ways surpass regular armies. Zhen laughed and asked, "So how are O'Connell and the others doing? England isn't peaceful at the moment." Ardith suddenly remembered something and clapped his hands. A guard ran out of the camp. He said, "They mailed a letter to me a little over 10 days ago. Said the tension is building up in England and they are being strict on immigration. So he and his family moved to the US for the time being." Ho ho. Evelyn gave birth to a boy. He should be 1 by now. He also mailed us a tiny piece of gold and a letter for you. Zhen was curious. A letter for me? How do they know that I will return at this time? It's been a year already. The guard came back in with a letter on hand and a red wooden box. Ardith opened the box to reveal a thin piece of golden fragment. Zhen opened the letter. "We arrived in the US. This is truly a country of freedom. We easily obtained immigration eligibility by bribing the officials. Though I heard that you have an easier time getting eligibility if you come from England in the first place. The problem is freaking Jonathan want to bring his girlfriend along. We should have left him in England. We found this golden mask by chance." Evelyn identified it as the craft of the Mayans. However, a stone pillar next to the mask wrote that the mask was created for human evolution. Its technology came from the ancient gods. Once the gods fall asleep, the evolved one will rule the human race. We witnessed the power of the mask with our eyes. A Caucasian put it on, then a drop of blood accidentally fell onto the mask. Countless needles came out from the mask and pierced into his head. We thought he was dead, but he actually became immensely powerful. His strength, speed, reaction, and recovery rate were all beyond human. He also likes to suck blood. We would have been dead if it wasn't for Jonathan. We obtained this fragment at the end. The mask can't be used without this piece. We are running from the west coast to east coast. Probably going to board the ship to Europe there. That monster is still chasing after us. He seems to be able to create undead underlings that are not afraid of sunlight or silver. Zhen, I don't know when you will come back. But if you see this letter, come help us. You are the only one with the power to rival this monster. Do it before we are dead." Zhen gulped and passed the letter to Xian. A minute later, Xian put it on the table and asked Ardith, "When did you receive the letter? From where?" Ardith thought for a bit and said, "About 12 days ago, from a small town in the west coast of the US. That place is an excavation site of Mayan ruins and gold." Xian turned to Zheng. "We can still make it in time if it's 12 days. Zheng, you are correct, this is a bonus mission. One that can reward an item. The mummy's world had so many bonus missions that maybe the rumor about the 7 crystal skulls leading to the technologies of Atlantis was real. Though they had no clue about this bonus mission. The main characters are such troublemakers no matter where they go. Early morning of the next day. Everyone came before the altar within the ruins of Hamunaptra. Zheng was still discussing the Golden Mask mission with Xian. Xian said, "Have you seen the manga JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? The beginning of the story referred to a golden mask that can turn people into vampires. These vampires don't age or die as long as they obtain enough blood, but they are countered by sunlight and silver. If this is the same mask then I can be certain of a fact." Asterisk stone mask from Aztec in the manga. Zheng asked in confusion. "What fact are you talking about? Just make it clear." Xian shook his head. "Revive the members first. I will continue later." Zheng had no choice but to nod. After Kampa and Wang Xia came near the altar, he brought out the Book of Amunare. Following the notification from God, he asked if the cost of revival can be contributed by multiple people. "It's possible." "Which means?" The reply from God made his heart beat faster. They each contributed 4,000 points and the rewards as planned, enough to revive 2 people this round. Revive 0. A group was running toward Hamunaptra in the desert. 0 lay against a stone pillar shooting at the group. He replied to a man next to him, then a needle passed through space and pierced into his heart. The Gauss sniper rifle fell to the sand. Inside a lavish mansion. A little boy was laughing happily. Next to him were a man and woman with gentle smiles. An armed group charged into the mansion. He witnessed a bullet shot through his father's heart while a man grabbed his mother. The blood from his father splashed his face. He spent all his time studying and training himself until he became an assassin that couldn't smile anymore. He returned to this mansion of despair. That shameless woman was not there anymore. She died many years back. In her place was a beautiful girl, yet also his little brother. What was ironic was genetic sexual attraction made him fall in love with his brother. So he killed him, killed that man, then prepared to kill himself. Zheng received these images as 0 appeared on the altar. He took a deep breath and buried them in his memory. He suddenly realized that he had the most pointless reason out of everyone. He came to this world because he couldn't see hope in the real world. Whereas for everyone else, the real world was a place of despair. 0 opened his eyes and tensed his body. He was always so cautious. When he saw Zheng, he let out a sigh of relief. But Xian and Kampa made him look slightly confused. His hand reached for his heart. There was no trace of being pierced by a needle. Zheng stared at 0 then asked, "Will you still fight alongside me? Until death?" His answer was succinct. 0 looked around and walked off the altar. What happened? Why did Hamunaptra become like this? Is it Team India? Why is Xian and Kampa here? And who is this? Zheng patted his shoulder then said, "Bro, it will be a long explanation. To make it short, you died in the battle with Team India. We revived you with an item. Haha, it's always a good thing to be alive." 0 nodded and reached for his side. Then he smiled bitterly. "My rifle, forget it. Being revived is the most fortunate thing already. Where are the others?" Zheng said, "I will tell you what happened later. We are going to revive one more." He placed the Book of Amunare on the altar and received the notification again. Revive Zhan Lan. Everyone paid the points and rewards. A light flashed over the book and a series of images entered his head. Several people were lying on a straight highway and several standing. A group surrounded a man and 2 women. The man spread his arms and protected the women behind with a smile. Then the man fell to the ground in blood. The 2 women were shot by laser guns the next moment. But she was still smiling at her death. A tall man and woman were talking on the street with their hands together. It had been 2 years since they started dating, but they only got up to holding hands. This was the first love for both of them. They wanted delicate love, not burning desires. The couple were satisfied with their progression and had begun planning for their marriage. After they saved up enough money, they could live together happily the rest of their lives. During that date, a robber that seized a woman's purse ran in front of them. The man went to chase the robber. After he caught the robber, bystanders watched with indifference as if they were watching a show. The robber stabbed him in the stomach and ran away. No one remembered him. The case went from unintentional manslaughter to excessive self-defense. The hero was framed as the one that initiated the attack. The woman retracted her testimony, claiming the robber as her boyfriend. What was fair? What was justice? Everything was powerless under money and political influence. No one would remember him. His life just dissipated without anyone knowing. She lost all faith in the real world and contemplated suicide. The yes and no question appeared, then she came into this world. Here, she met someone that was so similar to that him. But this one was much stronger, enough to protect her, and to protect himself. Someone like him wouldn't die before she does. So she slowly fell in love with him. Was this love? Was it not? Zheng didn't know. His feelings were complex at this moment as he stared at Lan appearing on the altar. Her face was pale as she lay there. She slowly opened her eyes. The first person to came into her view was Zheng. Tears immediately blurred her eyes. She opened her arms until she realized there were other people on the side and blushed. This is Hamunaptra. Why am I here? I remember I was killed in Resident Evil. Lan looked around and asked with surprise. Zheng laughed and nodded. You're right. This is Hamunaptra. You also died in Resident Evil. Don't worry. You are alive now. This is going to be a long story. Let's go. We will return to the base first. Zhen led them out of Hamunaptra. For some reason, he was afraid of looking into Ian's eyes. The tears in those eyes felt too heavy, a burden that he couldn't bear. This is just the beginning. I will gather my comrades again. We will keep growing stronger together until we can rival Team Devil. Let us defeat them together. Zhen put that burdening love aside and shouted. These words echoed throughout Hamunaptra. Basically, we all died in the battle against Team Devil, including me. That revival cross was from you, right? Zhen was sitting inside a tent. Zero and Lan looked absent-minded. Though no one would feel perfectly normal after learning of their death. Zero was tougher and soon got a hold of himself while Lan seemed absorbed in herself. Xian called for her several times before she replied. What's it? Xian adjusted his glasses. Try and use your psyche scan and soul link abilities. Link with my mind and show me the largest area you can scan. She recognized Xian a while ago. He left her with a strong impression in Alien. It was surprising that Zhen chose to revive this ruthless man. She was curious at the request but still did so. Xian frowned a bit as he was thinking. It took some time before he said. Pretty good. The combination of these two skills provide impressive scouting in the battlefield. They can sway a team's survival. Lan smiled at him but remained quiet. Zhen quickly changed the topic and said. Xian, what were you saying before about the golden mask? What is that fact? Xian nodded. This is something I should explain to you. Quest items are probably relics from ancient civilizations. Of course, the ones we have, such as the books and the Spear of Osiris, are imitations. God cloned these items then put them into the various worlds. The others were quite confused. Xian continued. To make a comparison, you probably know of cultivation, Xiaozhan, from ancient China. It is a systematic method of becoming stronger, much like education. The foundation stage is grade school, Jindan stage is middle school, Yuanyan stage is high school. The cultivation system also contains various knowledge and one of such branches is crafting. The quest items we have are likely these crafted items. I have been analyzing and doing research on the creation of magic items and weapons. Currently, I can manufacture most sci-fi weapons given enough time and their designs. Though most of these weapons take too long to make. However, I have no way of making magical items or even analyze them. You may think that sci-fi weapons such as the EMP rifle and Gauss rifle are extremely powerful. But magical items have effects and powers way beyond sci-fi weapons. I saw a Tier B defensive cultivation item in the exchange system that is rechargeable and can defend against many nuclear missiles. Can any of your rifles break through that defense before your enemies attack you? At the same time, with stronger magical defenses come stronger weapons. Tier B and above weapons are probably strong enough to break through that defense with multiple attacks. So I have been thinking of the origin of these items. From the information we have gathered, I am certain they belong to a technology. A technology different from ours in the real world. Similar to energy control in the 5th stage, this technology applies very fine control over energy. The symbols and characters is the equivalent of a circuit, each directing different flows of energy. What effects will it have when these symbols and characters combine together? They are like a programming language. Once I can get over this problem, I will be able to create magical items. Everyone was shocked to hear these words. Xian adjusted his glasses and said. That's why our goal isn't just for the Golden Mask bonus mission but to enter the Mayan ruins. I need to find the method of creating the mask, or at least information on the symbols and characters. Even at the expense of not completing the mission. These information is worth more than the rewards from the mission, just like the dragon's heart in comparison to the points we obtained. Obtaining knowledge of ancient civilizations meant they could create magical items. After they reached this conclusion, they all agreed to head to the US. Kappa patted his shoulder and said. You should have just made it simple instead of talking a bunch. Weren't you just confusing us illiterates? Haha. I get it. Just go to the US and obtain the golden mask, then search for more inside that Mayan ruins. Xian took off his glasses as everyone else cheered. He wiped the glasses and muttered. Ignorance is such a bliss. Zheng slapped Xian's shoulder and said. Okay. Enough with the ignorance is a bliss. Tell us, what are we going to do next? We only have 10 days in this world, or 9 days remaining. I don't think we have enough time to head to the US, obtain the mask, then enter the ruins. Xian nodded. Of course it is not enough. It should take at least 40 days to do everything. Which means we have to wait out these 10 days, go back then return to this world again. You still have around 10,000 points. Each person can gift another person points or rewards once between each movie. You will activate this world for Lan and exchange 40 days in the world. I will do the same for Zero. So the two of them can fight for the team immediately. Zhen counted the points they needed to spend and nodded. Understood. We will go along with your plan. But are you sure about obtaining the systematic knowledge of magic? If we don't get it, then we would have wasted 12,000 points and 2 rank D rewards. Xian nodded with certainty. His face had a hint of fanaticism. Of course, worth the risk. This is a gamble but has a 50% chance of giving us the knowledge of magical items. We can get the golden mask for certainty. 50% chance is enough for us to take this risk because points are insignificant when compared to the knowledge. Just like letting you trade gold for cultivation methods. We have to obtain this knowledge at all cost. Maybe this is your only desire right now, to understand the unknown. Zhen nodded and said to the others. Okay, since it's been decided, let's go to Cairo. We will wait out the 9 days there then come back for 40 days. Take a good rest in these 9 days. We don't get it often. Xian suddenly said. Since we are returning to Cairo, why don't we go fishing? The sky stick wavered several times as Zheng's mind wandered off. The people hanging below thought it was due to carrying too many people, and the image did seem quite weird with the sky stick being so little. Fortunately, it was a sci-fi item after all and had no actual problem carrying all of them aside from slowing down. We have to prepare a few items to cross the Atlantic Ocean. First is another sky stick. The current speed is too slow when carrying 6 people. Its energy will also deplete too fast. This will require a rank D reward from Zheng. Second is some consumable items. Lan also needs to keep a constant scan around us for storms and islands suitable for rests. As Zheng listened to that emotionless voice, he wondered how someone without feelings liked fishing. Did he really want to fish a whale? They arrived at Cairo before long. Everyone got off and decided to stay in the same inn. Zheng still had a large sum in the bank of this world so they didn't have to worry about money. Once he withdrew some money, they booked the whole inn. Nothing special happened in the night. They had dinner together, talked about random stuff and their future, then went to bed. Everyone gathered in the lobby the next morning then headed toward the Cairo port after a quick breakfast. They bought the fishing rods along the way and to their surprise, Zero actually knew quite a lot. He picked the baits and rods for everyone. Zhen was left with no words. Zero. You don't know his true power. Why did you choose such equipments for him? Zheng thought with a bitter laugh. They soon reached the port. Zhen was prepared. He went to the largest yacht in the others' confusion and paid twice the normal price to rent it. The owner of this yacht was a young Caucasian. He counted the pounds happily then let them board. Trips like this made them relax. A lot of times, thoughts of fights and deaths filled their minds when struggling to live in the movies. An occasional relaxing trip was beneficial for them to take on upcoming battles. For a while, everyone felt lazy. Aside from Xian who had been sitting by the rail alone. He slowly put on the bait then cast the hook into the Nile River. Zero laughed. Xian, you enjoy fishing too? You probably didn't know that my skills are on expert level. We went fishing with a few partners that was on a job before and they called me the Prince of Fishing. Just as he finished talking, Xian pulled an African carp onto the deck. He quietly took off the hook before turning to Zero. Did you say something? Zero was still laughing. Not bad. But don't worry. I am definitely stronger than you. Why don't we have a competition? He went over to the rail and began assembling the tackle. Xian had already cast the hook into the river again. Zhen looked out from the cabin and smiled bitterly at Zero and Xian. As the size of fish grew bigger every time Xian pulled back, the nightmare repeated itself. Though the bearer changed to Zero this time. Whether he was the Prince of Fishing or not, that title was now gone. What are you thinking? It was Lan. Zhen turned around to see her standing not far behind. She was carrying a tray with 2 cups of coffee. They each took a cup. Lan gave off an expression that it was bitter after taking a sip. Ho ho. Don't you know to add milk and sugar? Zhen also tasted that bitterness. That was the taste of pure coffee. Lan smiled. No. That can of sugar had bugs in them. I don't know when was the last time this yacht's owner drank coffee. The coffee beans were sealed though so there was no problem with it. So what were you thinking just now? Zhen gave her a smile then turned back around. Nothing special. Just that it feels calm. Every time I came back from battle, my mind and heart would feel tense. As if one more little thing will make them snap. Thankfully there's a time like this to rest before the next movie. Where is Kampa and Wang's yacht? Lan closed her eyes for several seconds. Wang's yacht is hiding in a cabin reading a novel. Kampa is bathing sunlight on the top. He's sleeping on one of the lying chairs. Why don't you go fishing or do something you like? Zhen shook his head. I am feeling calm right now. I just want to stand here and not move around. Ho ho. Lan blinked and giggled. Why don't you chat with me if you have nothing else to do? Talk about what happened after we died. What did you do afterward? How did you revive Xian and the others? I am curious. She dragged Zheng to the chairs. Zheng sat down along with her. Then Lan just stared at him. The attention coming from her gaze was filled with feelings. Zheng subconsciously turned his head to the side. What should I say? All of you died back there. I returned to God's dimension miraculously. I was lucky to have killed 2 unlocked members from Team Devil so my points didn't go negative. It was also thanks to my clone who gave me the hints to revive you. After I returned, I exchanged 3 months in this world to excavate the collapsed Hamunaptra and search for the Book of Amunare. After that, I kept looking for bonus missions since it costs a rank B reward and 8,000 points to revive a veteran. I was alone and had no one to split the cost. Then I revived Xian for his intelligence to look for more bonus missions. As Zhen was muttering to himself, Lan began crying softly. But a smile arose with her tears. It's wonderful that you are still alive. When I was dying I thought I had nothing to fear anymore, but I was scared that I couldn't see you again, couldn't hear your voice again, couldn't connect with your mind again. I was scared. As she was talking, Zheng suddenly walked over to her and embraced her. Then he turned around and walked out to the deck. Lan was crying with delight this time because she felt a kiss on her lips. Yet she was uncertain if it was real because her mind was dazed on the sudden embrace. The sunlight outside depicted Zheng's feeling at the moment.